Now, did India win independence because of a non-violent movement that was led by Mahatma Gandhi and Pandit Nehru, or it was an impact of Subhas Chandra Bose's Indian National Army that made the British panic and leave India? Well, the declassification of Netaji files have sparked a massive debate on the need to rewrite modern Indian history. A yet-to-be-published book by Netaji scholar General G.D. Bakshi has published Conversations with Clement Attlee, and in these conversations, the then British Prime Minister apparently said that the role played by Netaji's army was paramount in India and being granted independence to India, while the role played by the non-violent movement was dismissed as minimal. Rahul Kawal secured an advance copy of Bose, an Indian samurai. He files this report.
India is going to be free.
Most Indian history textbooks about the freedom struggle are dominated by the role played by the non-violent movement of Mahatma Gandhi. Ahimsa and Satyagrah are the shining ideals that are central to the idea of how India won its hard-fought freedom. But was India's freedom gained entirely by the non-violent struggle of Mahatma Gandhi, and was there no contribution of the use of force? A controversial new book written by military historian General G.D. Bakshi seeks to overturn the traditional idea of how India won its freedom. India today has been able to exclusively access an advance copy of a Knowledge World publication, Bose, an Indian Samurai. In this book, General G.D. Bakshi quotes from a conversation between former British Prime Minister Clement Attlee and the then Governor of West Bengal, Justice P.B. Chakrabarty. In 1956, Clement Attlee had come to India and stayed in Kolkata as a guest of the then Governor. Remember, Clement Richard Attlee was the man who, as leader of the Labour Party and British Prime Minister between 1945 and 1951, signed off on the decision to grant independence to India. P.B. Chakrabarty was at that time the Chief Justice of the Calcutta High Court and was also serving as the acting Governor of West Bengal. He wrote a letter to the publisher of R.C. Majumdar's book, A History of Bengal. In this letter, the Chief Justice wrote, and I quote, "When I was acting Governor, Lord Attlee, who had given us independence by withdrawing British rule from India, spent 2 days in the Governor's Palace at Calcutta during his tour of India. At that time, I had a prolonged discussion with him regarding the real factors that had led the British to quit India." Chakrabarty adds, "My direct question to Attlee was that since Gandhi's Quit India movement had tapered off quite some time ago, and in 1947 no such new compelling situation had arisen that would necessitate a hasty British departure, why did they have to leave?" Listen carefully to the answer Attlee gave Justice Chakrabarty. In his reply, Attlee cited several reasons, the principal among them being the erosion of loyalty to the British Crown among the Indian Army and Navy personnel as a result of the military activities of Netaji. That's not all. Chakrabarty adds, "Towards the end of our discussion, I asked Attlee what was the extent of Gandhi's influence upon the British decision to quit India. Hearing this question, Attlee's lips became twisted in a sarcastic smile as he slowly chewed out the word minimal, M-I-N-I-M-A-L. This startling conversation was first published by the Institute of Historical Review by author Ranjan Bora in 1982 in his piece on Subhas Chandra Bose, the Indian National Army and the War of India's Liberation. To understand the significance of Attlee's assertion, we have to go back in time to 1945. The Second World War had ended. The Allied powers led by Britain and the United States had won. The Axis powers, led by Hitler's Germany, had been vanquished. The victors wanted to impose justice on the defeated armies. In India, officers of Netaji Bose's Indian National Army were put on trial for treason, torture and murder. This series of court-martials came to be known as the Red Fort Trials. Indians serving in the British Armed Forces were inflamed by the Red Fort Trials. In February 1946, almost 20,000 soldiers of the Royal Indian Navy, serving on 78 ships, mutinied against the empire. They went around Mumbai with portraits of Netaji and forced the British to shout Jai Hind and other INA slogans. The rebels brought down the Union Jack on their ships and refused to obey their British masters. This mutiny was followed by similar rebellions in the Royal Air Force and also in the British Army units in Jabalpur. The British were terrified. After the Second World War, 2.5 million Indian soldiers were being decommissioned from the British Army. Military intelligence reports in 1946 indicated that the Indian soldiers were inflamed and could not be relied upon to obey their British officers. There were only 40,000 British troops in India at that time. Most were eager to go home and in no mood to fight the 2.5 million battle-hardened Indian soldiers who were being demobilized. It is under these circumstances that the British decided to grant independence to India. The idea behind putting these documents in the public domain is not to in any way undermine the significant contribution of Mahatma Gandhi or Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru, but to bring into the public light the impact of the contribution of Netaji Subhas Chandra Bose's Indian National Army. Modern Indian textbooks are dominated by the non-violent freedom struggle, while the role of the INA is dismissed in a few cursory paragraphs. The time has come for Indian history to be rewritten, to acknowledge the significant contribution of Netaji Subhas Chandra Bose and the bravehearts who made up the Indian National Army. This is Rahul Kamul reporting for India Today.
JDU MLA Sarfaraz Alam, along with his two associates, have been granted bail. However, they have been asked to cooperate with the investigation and their passports have been seized. The JDU lawmaker was